Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Legacy BookBar Sip and Chat. If this is the first time you've ever caught one of our broadcasts, my name is Manina Bill Bush, and I am the owner of Legacy BookBar. If you're trying to figure out what Legacy BookBar is, we are an online bookstore that caters to Black self-published authors. We're not exclusive to them, but we do cater to them. So if you are an avid reader, if you are an established or aspiring author and you are looking to have your books in a store, or if you're looking to purchase any books in a multitude of genres written by Black authors featuring characters that look like yourself, please feel free throughout this broadcast and in the future, go to www.legacybookbar.com. Tonight, I have the pleasure of having Nicole Gibbons-Kurtz with us. She is an author and the owner of Mocha Memoirs Press Publishing Company. Thank you, Nicole, for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, for those that are watching, when I decided that this was the path I was going to go on as far as starting a bookstore, I think I cyber stalked every Black-owned publishing company literally across the United States. I was trying to find them. I was emailing. I was doing like the chat boxes, trying to find any publishing company that would be willing to start working with a brand new, super small bookstore. This is how I found Nicole, that she needs a pity on me. And not like, so hey, girl.
Your idea was fantastic. Pop-up bookstores? I mean, come on. That was amazing. And it was so different and radical too. It's like in places where bookstores used to be, malls, like there used to be a Walden Books in the mall, used to be a B&N in the mall. Like they used to be 3 or 4 bookstores in the mall, and then suddenly they're like they're literally deserts now. So your idea for Legacy BookBar to have a pop-up bookstore in the mall was like, oh yeah, let's do that. That's amazing. Why hadn't anyone thought of that before? It's a great idea. And so yeah, I was definitely on board with that.
Didn't have me arrested for cyber stalking.
No. No.
It's great. It's same thing with what is it, Indy Jones. I definitely know I cyber stalked her. I'm so glad you got that.
Seriously, she was but she's worthy of stalking though. Like her work is just brilliant.
Phenomenal. And then who knew that she would have been right here in Baltimore? So I was like,
I was like, are you both? Wow. You're both there.
Please be my best friend. Like, oh my God.
And those are the best things, right? You love books. You write books. This is perfect.
Let's just do this. Let's be BFFs. It's great. Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, she's fantastic people too. So that was just that's awesome. Great.
So if you've been following Legacy BookBar, you know we hit our 1-year anniversary in November, and we had our first ever virtual book summit that went amazing. I had no idea it was going to go off as well as it did. Nobody would know. I think I was sweating to death. I was so nervous because I'm
Could
like,
not tell.
I don't know how this is going to go, but I hope this goes great. And it did.
You were brilliant.
If you tuned into the book summit, then you saw Nicole on the segment where I just had publishers. So we had Indy Jones, we had Amanda Chambers with Divine Legacy, we had Nicole with Mocha Memoirs, and like I said, I mentioned Indy Jones with Kumba Publishing. And it was an amazing segment. The questions, the responses that we got from those ladies, the wealth of information that came through that summit was just great.
Heck, even I learned something from that summit. So I was just like taking notes too, like, okay, I didn't know that.
Right.
I learned things too. It was just great.
And again, being so new to this industry, only in it a year, I was like, what? You have to do this? You have to know this? This costs money? Oh my, It was great. That was like the best summit ever. It was really, really good for that hour and some change that you guys were on. But then I was like, well, wait a minute. Nicole is also an author outside of owning her own publishing company. I was like, wait a minute. I have to have her on for her own segment to talk about her amazing books. So, like I said, if this is the first time you've ever watched one of our episodes, or you are a fan and you've perused our website store, you want to go to the section that says horror, and she has ran that whole section with Legacy BookBar. So if you don't believe me, I have copies of her books here with me, which she sent me gifts, and I love gifts because my authors love me. So I have Wild Sage here. It's great. Western collection of short stories. And this book, which I thought I was going to sell, but then she was like, it's a gift. And I was like, yes, is this book, which I am starting tonight. After I do laundry, I am starting this book. Okay. So if you like horror, or you know a family or friend that does, Nicole Kurtz is running the horror section with Legacy BookBar. Her and her other fabulous authors from Mocha Memoirs Press. So, we have some comments. We have the Legacy Mama. My mom is here every week with us.
Hi, Mom.
She said, hello, ladies. She said, Book Summit was awesome. Yes, it was. Thank you. 4-hour virtual summit. I have no idea how we did it, but it worked. So we could do anything. Indy Jones said, happy Friday, ladies. Good to see you both. And yep, love the sister cowgirl cover. Absolutely. Hey, Julian Clark said, you said horror, question mark. My favorite genre, I must try. Well, Julian, I have a sneak peek for you. If you go to the website tonight and purchase one of Nicole Kurtz's books or multiple books, use the shop code #popup and get 10% off your sales today. Okay? So let's talk about you, Miss Kurtz. So how do we get into this? How
do I start writing horror, right?
Right. Horror, because that was so again, in the midst of me cyber stalking, right? I'm looking for books, right? Just like, where can I find books? What can I get? By the time I got to Nicole, I was finding romance, I was finding urban fiction. That was the plethora of genres I could find. By that time, I also had Indy Jones. So I was like, I just need books. All genres are welcomed. We were going back and forth through email, and she was like, yeah, I have a publishing company, and we do all horror.
We do. We also do science fiction and fantasy as well. So our mission for the last 11 years at Mocha Memoirs has been to kind of amplify marginalized or underrepresented groups in speculative fiction, and that includes horror. It also includes fantasy, which you may in science fiction, and underneath those umbrellas, you see things like Afrofuturism is a big one for us as well. And so when we look to the future, we want to see us, and we want to see LGBTQ. We want to see those voices that tend not to show up in science fiction and fantasy, and particularly horror, until as of late, like Lovecraft Country or Watchmen or Black Panther. So for the last 11 years, that's what we've been doing. That's the work that we have done at Mocha Memoirs, is trying to find those stories and publish them and get them out there into readers, because representation is very important. But it's not just important for the reader to see characters that look like them. It's also important for people who aren't part of that demographic to see people of color, and Black people in particular, doing extraordinary, wonderful things in the future, or in fantasy, or in horror, other than being the first to die in the first 10 minutes of a horror film. Like, they kind of mock that in Scream. Okay, I know I'm dating myself, right? But it kind of mock that.
I'm with you. I was like, oh, I know exactly where she's going with that. It's okay. We're not the same age. I'm with you, though.
But
I'm
that's
with
the
you.
thing, right? So the thing for horror, and I am a recent 2021 Horror Writers Association recipient of the diversity grant, and so they gave out six, and I was one of them. And one of the things that they're trying to do is just help nurture those other voices in spec, those other voices in horror, those other voices that tend not to, due to access to maybe money or mentorship or um, classes and study in the craft. Like they're trying to help bolster those deficits so that horror looks a lot like it's supposed to, like as diverse as we are. And so I know them, the series on Hulu came out today. I have not watched it yet, but I plan to start it tonight. So I'm a huge horror fan. And Manisha asked why. Menina asked why or how. And my mom used to ask that question too. How the heck? Why are we going to the flea market and you buying all these Stephen King books? That dude writes horror.
Mm,
Yes. But I was
mm.
my love for horror goes further back. My favorite book as a child was Where the Wild Things Are, and if I
Oh,
think about
wow.
Max and his, in his wolf suit, and he gets mad, he doesn't want to eat dinner, and he gets sent to his room, and he goes sails across the sea and becomes king of the wild things. And so I
Mm,
was an obstinate child, the only child, to teenage parents, and so many times I wanted my way and didn't get it. And I identified strongly with Max. I'm just going to sail away and I'm going to go to where the wild things are. And I'm going to,
mm.
conquer them. And I'm going to be the queen of the wild things. And they can gnash their terrible teeth and they can do, right. So stomp their terrible feet. And so even as a kid, like my favorite book was kind of rooted in this horrific monster scene. And as I grew older, that didn't change. I'm also a child of the 80s. So I grew up,
Mm.
come of age during the Freddy Krueger, Jason, slasher flicks. You
Which
go to
I've never watched any of them.
you go to like Blockbuster or the local mom and pop video shop, and there's like
Mm.
rows upon rows of just slasher horror films. And my mom and dad used to rent those, and we'd watch like 3 a week, and then we'd go back and get three more, and we go back and get three more. And so I am definitely a child of horror,
Ah,
and
okay.
it's really close to
Okay.
my heart. It's not the only thing I write, because I do write like science fiction mysteries and fantasy mysteries, but that weird western that you have called Sisters of the Wild Sage, those are all weird western stories that kind of lean towards horror. You're like, Nicole, what the heck is a weird western? Well, think about Will Smith in Wild Wild West, or think about Cowboys versus Aliens. It's where you take the West, the American West, and you make it weird, either with magic or
Okay.
aliens, or in my case, werewolves or what have you,
Right,
right?
right.
So that's they're all weird westerns in that sense. They all are horrific. Not a lot of slasher ones. There is one that's a little bloody, but most of it's like psychological, magical horror.
Nice. So I was that kid that did not watch horror movies. If you maybe
Oh my
if I went
gosh.
to a slumber party, and because for in the 80s and 90s, every time you went to a slumber party, everybody had to watch a horror movie.
Yes.
I'm the first kid to go to sleep. I could go to sleep so fast on purpose. Like I'm sleep probably for the first black person is killed on the movie.
That's
I'm
pretty
done.
fast because they
Like
usually.
that's put on a horror movie and you could time how fast I could fall asleep. I
Whoa.
wasn't for it. That wasn't. Now you want to put something on, something gets blown up. A murder
I am
mystery.
also a fan of action adventure,
I'm,
and I'm also
I'm
a fan
with
of murder
you.
mystery. So,
But Jason, Chucky, and then I couldn't watch Chucky because again, okay, so I'm showing my age. I'm an 80s baby. I had the kid brother, my little brother doll, and the kid sister doll. I had those, and they looked just like Chucky.
yeah,
I can't go to sleep and thinking that my doll is going to come to life and kill
yeah.
everybody in the house. So I stayed away from those movies. I stayed
And
away from those.
so, just to warn you, in the Weird Western, there is a story called Belly Speaker, and it is about a ventriloquist doll and her owner. And yeah, that one, I mean, it's hard. But if
Yeah.
you're like apprehensive, like I am about marionettes and puppets, and like I don't do those. Like I don't do marionettes, I don't do puppets, I don't do I
And
don't do
surprisingly, those don't
dolls.
scare me. It's
Those freak me out.
weird.
So it's like the scene in the Polar Express where the little boy gets on the train and gets lost in like this room full of marionettes. I fast forward through that.
Oh my
I
god.
cannot watch that. Oh my god. Oh my god, no. No.
Oh my gracious. So comments are going off. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Of course, we got Amanda Chambers here. She is owner of Divine Legacy. You've heard us talking
Hey,
about her a little
Amanda.
bit. Amanda's here. She said, I'm going to try it. Y'all know I'm a fraidy cat. I'm with you too, but hey, I'm going to do it. I'm going to, so everyone that knows that when I say I go hard for my authors, and in Nicole's case, she's like my author / my publisher. Is so crazy, but they know I go hard. I'm a huge cheerleader. I read all of the books. I'm going to be brave. I might have to sit with the light on, but I'm going to be brave and I'm going to read it.
So Belly Speaker is the one that people love. They tend to love that one. Because it ultimately it's about a woman finding her voice. And if you think about a belly speaker or a ventriloquist, they speak through a doll, right? And her doll is alive. And so yeah, there's things that happen. But the first story in Sisters of the Wild Sage is called Revival. And it kind of pulls back to my apostolic roots. My grandmother was an apostolic pastor. And so those are your holy rollers. They speak in tongue. They, they don't wear makeup. They don't wear jewelry. They don't wear pants. And so I was raised in an apostolic household because my grandmother was a pastor of her own apostolic church, which was unheard of back in the early 60s, right? Women just didn't do that. Especially Black women. And so my grandmother was kind of like a pioneer, and both my aunt and my mom are both apostolic evangelists. And so Revival kind of harkens back to that big tent revival you see down south sometimes. And yeah, so it's also a horror story, but there's no slashing, but it entails about a young girl and living with her aunt, but they have traveled. The young girl was born in the New Mexico territory, but the great aunt, used to be a former slave. And so a lot of the stories in Sisters of the Wild Sage take place in the New Mexico territory, right around Reformation, which is when you saw a lot of freed slaves, a lot of former soldiers moving out west. And when you go out west during this time period, like everyone's moving out west, you can be anyone you want, right? It's all about reinvention, and it's freedom to a large degree, because there's this really harsh landscape and environment, and it's kind of difficult. If you were raised picking cotton in Tennessee, and you travel in a wagon all the way to the New Mexico territory, it's hard. It's harsh. It's ugly. And if you make it there alive with all your limbs, you have to work this really unforgiving land.
Land and territory, yeah.
And so I lived in New Mexico for 6.5 years and had a house there and loved it.
Really?
We lived so far outside the city limits, they wouldn't deliver mail there. We had to go into town to a post office box.
Oh my. And I wanted to move to New Mexico, and everyone said I was crazy.
No, it's brilliant. It took my mom a minute. She kept going, so do I need a passport? I'm like, Mom, it's the state between Arizona and Texas. Like, no, that's not a blank spot. It's actually a state there. And yes, there are more sheep than people, but it's still a state. But I loved it. I lived in the northwest corner, and it's surrounded on 3 sides. It's called the Four Corners area. It's surrounded on 3 sides. It's where the New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Arizona meet. And that's all Navajo, Dene land, reservation land, Zuni reservation land, and Hopi reservation land. And so the city of Gallup, which is where I live on the outskirts of, it's very tiny. It's only a population of like 20,000 people. And so there's like a Walmart. And yes, that was a Walmart.
There was that means one people. A means one.
Yes. There was 2 McDonald's on opposite ends of town. But there were a lot of mom and pop shops. And it was great. Like, and honestly, if my ex-husband hadn't been such a baby and wanted to leave, I would have probably died there. I loved it.
I love
But
that.
so
Palm tree of shade. I'm not gonna say it. I caught that whole palm tree. It's great. Just keep going.
so a lot of almost all the stories in Sisters of the Wild Sage are influenced by my time there. Many of them were
Mm.
written while I still lived there. And New Mexico is just an enchanting like state. You have cities like the city of like Las Cruces, the city of Crosses, Las
That's where
Lunas,
I
the
wanted
city
to
of Moons.
go.
I mean, it's just
We're
it's
gonna have to take a road trip
yes.
and
I mean,
just
I'm
go
always
on
willing to go
over.
back.
I want to go so bad. I know my mom and husband are like, we are not going to New Mexico. I want
I
to
will
go.
warn you that Milton Davis read that read Sisters of the Wild Sage, and he said Nicole is so great with the descriptions. I want to book her a trip to New Mexico because I
Right.
love the state. I really do. It's I consider it more home than Tennessee is for me. But I
Mm,
do love it like a great deal. And I tell my husband, I was like, when we get to a point where we're about ready to retire, we're going. I'm
that's
going
it.
back home. I'm going to New
That is
Mexico. Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. Oh my gracious. So Julian, I hope you got that hashtag pop up. If you're gonna get that 10% off of any of the books that Legacy Book Bar has for Nicole. Uh my mom said child of horror. She is one too. She is avid reader of Stephen King. I
Yes.
will not pick up a book. Now I am a reader, right?
Mhm.
I read everything. Stephen King, nah, bro.
Ah, come on. Okay,
Nah, bro.
so it depends on which one it is. Like my favorite Stephen King, my favorite series is the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, which again is a weird western. You probably
They
remember
made the movie, right, with
the
Matthew
oh,
McConaughey
got
and
my heart.
Idris.
That movie was awful. I wanted to.
Was it? I see. Crazy. I liked it. I don't know. Maybe
You
because I liked it
can't
because it was weird. I
like
don't get it.
you can't take 8 volumes of the Dark Tower series and squeeze it into this
Uh,
2 hour movie. And the problem I had with it was that Jake in the book, when he first of all, when it's all messed up, but Jake is not 17. Jake is like 10, and his relationship with Roland is way more transitory than what you get in the movie. He doesn't say it's a huge mess. And I'm looking at this going, this is why I don't like book to film adaptations. Um, but I love Idris as Roland. Originally, when Stephen King wrote The Gunslinger back in like '78, he based Roland off of Clint Eastwood. So in that sense, it's still very much a weird Western, and it said that it's his role. It's in Gilead. It's in another place. It's different, you know. So long story short, it's my favorite series. Like I own accordions for it. I own reference books for it. I own comic. I know all the comics. I own 2 because one I read and one I kept in plastic. Like huge fan.
I
Huge
guess I
fan.
had to step my game up because I am clearly behind the 8 ball here.
But you should read
Comments
it
are going
because
off.
it is not like your slasher horror. It's some of it is horrific, but
Okay, horror.
it's not, and that's one of the things I like to tell people about horror. There are different kinds of horror, and for Black
Okay,
people, I've been on a couple of panels lately, but for Black people, what scares us, it's very different than what scares what may have scared people in the 80s or in the 70s. So you think of something like Lovecraft Country, or if you look at something like Us by Jordan Peele, or Get Out,
but
also by Peele.
didn't see any of those.
You
I'm
should,
scared of
because
cats. I'm
because
scared of cats.
they're not bloody. Well, Us can get bloody, but it's not the slasher stuff of the 80s. It's not a lot of jump scares because it's mostly social commentary horror, with the exception of Us. Like Us is what I like about Us is that it's not social commentary. It's a horror film that just happens. The center group just happens to be a Black family. Oh,
Okay.
which is what I love about Us. It's very different from Get Out, because Get Out is about your allies and the things that make us uncomfortable.
Right.
Um, I would have voted for Obama a third time. You got to see it because it's just there's so many cultural touchstones with Get Out. You just have to see it, right? Us is
I got
very
some homework, guys. If anyone is listening,
is
Nicole
us.
gave me some homework. I got,
They're
I
not.
got some homework.
Ask your mom. They're not slasher violence. Like I'm going to spit on your grave, which is the thing that scarred me. I'm like I can't watch any more slasher films because that tore me up.
And maybe that's and I could be one of the few that immediately when you think of horror, you thinking of slasher films, someone
Mhm.
is jumping out of the shower. Please don't jump out of my shower where I'm having my me moment. Don't do that. Like to this day, I remember this is so for those that live in the DMV area, you remember back in the day it was what WNUV, it was like channel 54 here, right? And Saturday afternoons, they always showed some crazy random horror movie. You either had martial arts or you had a horror or the beach movies, right? So this particular Saturday, I turned my TV on and I don't realize that it's a Freddy Krueger movie. I don't realize it.
Oh,
I
no.
don't realize it yet. I just turned it on
Oh
and I'm
no.
like,
Ah.
who this white chick in the bath in the bubble bath? Now, again, I am, me, bubble baths are my thing. Like that's my zen moment. Everyone knows this. So I'm like, why is she just in the bathtub? She ain't got no music on. Like, what is this? Right.
Love that
So
scene.
again, I'm watching.
Trying to stay awake. Trying to
no
stay awake.
clue, right? Now I see that she's falling. It's like her eyes are closed. I'm like,
Trying to stay awake.
have no idea what's going on. And then I see the hand come out of the shower. I mean, out of the bathtub, right?
Mhm.
I'm like, what is this? And then it goes back. I was like, what? It comes back out, grabs her, and pulls her under the water. I couldn't take bubble baths for like 6 months.
Yes.
I can't live like this, right? It was terrifying. I'm probably the 1% of people on this planet.
No, you're not.
I have a nightmare. I'll watch a horror movie. I'll go to sleep. I will have a nightmare.
Yeah.
I can wake up in the nightmare and be like, oh crap, that was a nightmare. Get up, go to the bathroom, lay back down, go back to sleep, and the nightmare will pick up right where it left off. I can't live like this.
Yeah, no, that's
I
pretty
can't do it. I can't.
Okay, so no hard stuff for you because they're all.
I can't give you the hard stuff. Like I'm gonna be a hot mess.
So did you watch like Bad Hair, which is also a horror film where the woman has natural hair and she gets to weave under pressure in the early 80s to
okay,
conform?
So I saw the previews. I didn't know it was horror, but I was like, okay. But it didn't immediately catch my attention, so I didn't. But anything that resembles
a slasher
horror,
film,
I'm like, oh.
So
my husband lets me know. We've been together a decade. I think I just watched a Jason movie for the first time from beginning to end 2 months ago.
Friday the 13th. Yeah. So
I'm like,
you're not the only person who thinks like that, though. Many people from our generation, when they think horror, they think in terms of like King, right? Because he completely is encapsulated 80s horror, right? So yeah, Lovecraft Country is one of my favorite. I do lots of talks about Lovecraft Country, and the joy. There's black joy in Lovecraft Country, the TV show, that you're probably thinking, Nicole, what the heck are you talking about? It's a horror thing. It is, but one of the things that I try to explain to people about horror for Black people is that it's the Scooby-Doo lesson that we all probably learned, that the things that are truly frightening and monstrous are the things that other people do. It's not the monsters themselves, it's human beings. And behind all these monstrous acts in Scooby-Doo, who does it always end up being? A person.
A person behind
or
the mask.
Behind that mask. And so when you think about horror, that's kind of that's one of the things that people love about Stephen King's horror, is that it's set in Maine. there's nothing in Maine, right? And so you have
Lobster, whales. That's all
just
I got.
ordinary people in Maine. But what Stephen King has managed to do over the course of his career is take the mundane and make it horrific. And that's what makes it awful. Because these are just ordinary people, just like, it's Maine. So, but the things that they do and the actions that they take and the stuff that they engage with is what makes it horrible. So if you think about like Stephen King and Joe Hill's novella In the Long Grass, which is which was made in, it's a novella, but it was also made into a film for Netflix, and you could probably go watch it if it's still there. It's called In the Long Grass. And how many times have you seen movies where cars just driving by rows and rows of corn and or tall grass? He made a whole novella about these people who end up going to hear calls of a child from the tall grass somewhere over there, and they park their car on the side of the road and they go in to try to help. They never come out. And so there's things that occur in the tall grass that's horrific. But that's the thing. It's something ordinary. It's just grass. But there's this whole like story. And that's one of the brilliant things about King is he takes the baseball, which is something he likes to talk about, kids, a gunslinger, a fan, as in Misery, right? I love this character. Don't you kill this character. I'm going to break your ankles so that you can sit here and write that she's still alive.
All right. I must admit, I did see Misery. I watched the movie. I did see that. And I must say, as a avid reader, didn't really see anything wrong with that. Like, please don't kill my favorite character.
Like, bring her back. Bring her back.
Like, if you are like 20 books into a series right now, those who know, like I tell everyone, I'm a reader. Right now, probably the one series that's like 50 books for those that read J.D. Robb, who is also Nora Roberts.
Yep.
I have every book of her In-Depth series.
Yep.
That series is freaking brilliant, right?
No, it is.
It's set in the future. Use the things that's legalized, flying cars, everything.
Yep. 2
main characters, Eve and Rourke. Let me tell you, I know this chick lives in Maryland. You killed. I don't care that you want to end the series and start a new one. That doesn't bother me. But let you kill one of them two, sis. I'm getting in my minivan, right? I'm driving to Maryland, and you're gonna fix this. I told today. As I watched the movie, I was like, well, she's kind of crazy, but I get it. If this is your best series, I get it. So my mom just posted, she's on book 54. I've read 54 books. Let you go ahead and think you're gonna kill them too.
Or you're vested with that character, right? And so that
like
that's like your family. You're like, what are you doing?
Like they come over to my house for Christmas. What you mean you're killing a character? We're not going to do this. This is not it. So this comment section is amazing tonight. Thank you, everyone. Julian Clark said he is my favorite author, talking about Stephen King. My mom agreed. All horror is not the same. Also, Julian said Them by Lena Waithe is on Prime Video.
Yes.
I have Prime Video, so we'll be checking that out.
Yeah, I was just told, I mentioned that earlier. Yes, I'm going to watch it as soon as I'm done with this. I'm going to start.
We're going to watch that. Yep. He said he just watched it last night. Talking about, I guess this is about the Us, Get Out movies you were talking about. And Dee said, yes, Benina, you have to catch up. Stop watching Falcon and Winter Soldier and check out Lovecraft Country.
I love Lovecraft Country, so don't even get me started.
Don't judge me, but everyone knows I'm a comic nerd. I like all the movies. But my husband was watching Lovecraft Country, and I think I caught on probably the last 2 or 3 episodes. But I have no idea the how, the whys, why are we, what are we, what's going on. So I do have to start from the beginning and kind of figure that out. But yes, I'm going to get onto that and get that. Maureen Mays is on. She is also a legacy author. So again, if you are into poetry and it's poetry month, it's April,
It's April,
you
yeah.
can get 10% off if you use the shop code. The shop code is in the comment section. So you can also get 10% off of her 3 books that are currently in stock at Legacy Book Bar. She said, oh my God, that part can't even close your eyes. I think that's when we were talking about the Freddie movie and the hand coming out the book.
I don't
Like,
know.
I can't do
Yeah.
that. My
Boiler
mom,
rooms have never been the same since Nightmare on Elm
no,
Street.
my mom said I am definitely weird because my nightmares pick up. It's like I hit
Mhm.
pause when I wake up and then I go back to sleep and it's right back. I can't do it. It's horrible. She also agreed there is nothing in Maine.
Not a darn thing.
Not a thing. And then when you talked about it's the monsters, or like in the Scooby-Doo movies,
Mhm.
it's always a person behind the mask that are doing the horrific acts.
Mhm.
And Indy Jones put Derek Chauvin. I'm gonna leave that be because I know where that meant, and she is 1,000% correct. That is definitely a monster. I am giving you that one.
Yes.
My
Yes.
mom said Misery, that book was so
The
good.
book was great. I mean, Kathy Bates' portrayal was great too, but the book is also like you get details you don't get in a film, of course, and so the book
Mm.
is amazing too. And not everything King writes is great, but he, in many instances, that's one of the things that's part of his longevity, is just his ability to take the mundane and make it horrific.
I must say, I love him on Twitter. He cracks me up every day on Twitter.
Yes, he's
He
hilarious.
is hilarious. If you have Twitter and you have not followed Stephen King, do so. That's the one
Yes.
thing I do is watch him on Twitter. Hilarious. And then Natalie said, laugh out loud, no judgment, because she knows today I definitely watched episode 4.
We talked
um,
about that already. We already talked about the Falcon and Winter Soldier today. My
right.
comic book
So
nerd is on.
if you haven't watched episode 4, do so tonight because
Do it.
me and Nicole already watched it.
We already watched it. I watched
We
it
already
before this.
watched
I told my husband, like, come on, because I got to do something at 9.
it. Yes. Yes. So
Oh my gosh.
most of the authors, if no, I think all of the authors before you are self-published authors or own a self-publishing company. You, my dear, are a little different. You are the first traditional published author / traditional published owner.
Yeah,
So let's talk a little bit about that box that you're in.
I'm what's called a hybrid author.
Okay.
My books are the first 3 Sybil Lewis books, which is think Blade Runner plus Shaft equals my Sybil Lewis series. So
Okay.
she's a black female in futuristic DC. It's called The District, because the United States have divided. They have dissolved into a series of territories, and so each territory has a different way of governing. So, like in the Cali province, they have a king. In the Northwest province, they have a dictator. But in the district, they have a governor who acts as their president. Basically, he governs the district.
Okay.
And so, what Sybil does is Sybil is a PI. She investigates crimes that either the regulators, aka the police, can't solve, don't solve, have screwed up, or people don't feel comfortable going to them. And so that was a 3-book series that I sold to Parker Publishing, like, I don't know, '04. Got an advance, had a 2000 print run for Silenced. Thought I was going somewhere. I'm like, oh yeah, 3-book deal, and advance and print run, and oh my gosh, I'm going somewhere. They had like LA Banks. They did a lot of romance. If you remember Parker Publishing, they did romance. They did a lot of romance. And so Kimberlyn Reed, which was the acquisition editor at the time, was like, "We're going to do science fiction," and I was the first one they picked for that. And then the bottom fell out of print. Right, everybody started doing ebooks. The print didn't take off. I mean, it didn't continue to hold that stamina, and I actually lost money. And then at the same time, the owners for Parker Publishing had, like, her husband had died. She had relocated from New York City to LA. There's a lot going on, and so my books kind of got lost in all that jumble, and they didn't quite know how to market it because it's science fiction. They're used to doing romance.
Romance.
And so uh, after that, I did get sales, I got royalties, I got advancements, I did all those things. But they after like 5 years, they gave me my rights back, and I just self published them. I mean, so there's that. But I do have books that are published with like Falstaff, and I have books published by other people, other publishing houses. I do have an agent. His name is Justin Bell. He is actively shopping around my fourth Civil Lewis book, which is called Scorched. And so y'all pray for me that that goes through. So he's
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
but I also self-publish things. Like I self-published, like Sisters of the Wild Sage is self-published, and so because I own my own publishing house, I do sometimes self-publish things. A lot of times, I republish things after I get the rights back to them. But I do some new stuff too, like my Fawn and Briscoe series, which is they're science fiction mysteries. I write a lot of mysteries that are set in scientific or futuristic settings. My Kingdom of Avis series, which is I actually have that one here. You can look at that. It's called Kill Three Birds.
Ooh, okay. Loving
It's
that cover.
so it's so Kill Three Birds is a fantasy set in the Kingdom of Avis. And so in the Kingdom of Avis, everyone worships the goddess who's a phoenix. And everyone is kind of the it's all matrilineal. So the women kind of rule the house. And so their ruling body is called the Order. And it's set up kind of like the Vatican, where the Pope is an owl, the cardinals are cardinals, and the bishops are doves, and then the hawks, which is what my protagonist Prentice is, they're the investigative arm for the Order. And so in the Kingdom of Avis, all the cities are called eggs, and all of the states are called nests, because cities are in states, and so eggs are in nests. And so an egg has a policing force. They're policed by eagles, right? And so and they have a ruling or overseer, which are all bishops or doves. And so when the eagles have a supernatural crime or event that they cannot resolve or fix or find out what's going on, they submit a request to the Order, and an investigative hawk, Prentice, or those like her, and they're always women, are sent out to investigate the crime or the event. Well, the thing about hawks is they can see the unseen. So they can see spiritual residue, they can see magic, they can see events that have happened. They have the ability to see things that other people can't. And so that's her power, and that's why they're such great tools for being investigators, because they can see the unseen. The other thing about hawks is that with that power or with that ability, over time, they go blind, because it takes longer and longer for them to get back to their human eyesight. And so, like Prentice members, her mom getting retired from the Order once she went blind, and so she spent time at home with her family, like being an organist at the church. Here's this fabulous investigator, but she gets retired because she can no longer use her human eyes, right? And so that's Kill Three Birds. She gets sent to a small town in a small egg and called Gold, and they've never seen a hawk before. They've never so they investigate. She investigates a missing girl, which ends up being like a serial killer case. Anyway, I love this series. This series was a response to the last year's unpleasantness. I wanted something fun to write for me. Like, I wasn't even sure I was going to publish it. I just wanted something for me. And so let the bird puns begin, because it's all punny, right? So like they pay with bird song, right? So that's how they pay. With bird song, and they're actually coins, or they call it bird song, right? They don't say hello, they say hoot. And so sometimes if you're on my Facebook page, you'll see readers of the Kingdom of Avis say hoot, Nicole, and I will hoot
That's
back
what
with
that
them.
means. Okay, I've seen that. I'm like,
It's for yeah,
that's not part of the cool crew.
no,
Got it.
it's
Now
part
it
of the
makes
Kingdom of
sense.
Avis stuff.
Makes sense. Makes
So
sense.
yeah, so she her guns are called talons, and so she can fly. She has wings, but not everyone does. And so in the Kingdom of Avis, and the fun part of this was the world building. Someone mentioned that, and it is the fun part is like, let's take roosters. Roosters get into pecking fights, right, to figure out who's on top. And so in the Kingdom of Avis, there is a chicken coop, aka a bar, that's run by Dale and his sister Denise. And Dale has all these scars from all his pecking fights. And of course, he adorns them with tattoos because he's proud of them. And the hens, who also have these scars, bedazzle them. Like, so
Mm.
if there are bird behaviors that occur, like with crows, they like shiny silver things. The people who are crows in that caste system in my world, they have those behaviors. So, like the driver for Princess is a vulture. Well, vultures in the Kingdom of Avis, just like their bird counterparts, they only eat raw dead things. They don't eat cooked food or vegetables or anything like that. They eat carrion. And then they also deal with the dead. They're the funeral home takers. They're the coroners. They're the people who deal with death. The vultures do. And so that's been fun because there are like 100 million types of birds, and taking those characteristics and applying them to people and watching what happens has been a blast. There's already two
Mm.
books. And so
Wow. Okay.
Filthy Birds, and then there's a Theft Fowl, FOWL. Yes, I know it's punny. It's a lame pun, but there it is. Um, so I love this series
You
because it's a
love it.
mystery.
Okay.
They're mysteries, and so
And
they're
is this
definitely
series on your website?
it is. It's also
Okay.
on Amazon. If you go to Amazon and put in Nicole Givens Kurtz, all that comes up. The Kingdom of Avis series. The first one is Kill Three Birds. The second one is my attempt to be Dan Brown, which there's a sacred artifact that's stolen from a university museum. And so it's kind of like my Da Vinci slash Angels and Demons attempt to create an artifact heist story, but with birds. So
Mm. Gotcha. Okay.
I
So
love
let's
this
talk
series.
about Mocha Memoirs Press here. So some people, some authors, aspiring are and established, um, need or maybe not know what traditional publishing houses offer. So let's talk about that a little bit, because hopefully people are sharing this broadcast with family and friends or putting it on their author pages, and someone else is like, oh, well, let me check this out. And then they come to this midway point and it's like, oh, I don't know, should I self-publish? Should I traditionally publish? So everyone that's watched prior to this knows the benefits of self-publishing.
Mm-hmm.
But we've never had anyone talk about traditionally published. So let's talk about that. What are the benefits to traditionally published?
So, one of the things I like about traditional publishing is that all money flows to you. And so, normally, with a traditional publisher like myself or Falstaff or any of the big four, you don't pay for anything. You don't pay for the editing. You don't pay for the cover art. You don't pay for the ISBN. You don't pay for the proofing. You don't pay for anything, right? All money flows to the writer. Um, with small presses that are traditional, it's easier, well, not easier, but it's more flexible in some degree because they'll work with you to give you the cover that you like. They'll work with you to make sure that it's the story, it stays true to your voice. But sometimes when you get to like the mid range and a little higher up, they're a little less flexible with some of those things. So you just gotta, but they also have now, some people believe that big publishers like the big four will have these amazing marketing budgets, and they do. They just might not be for you. So big names get big budgets, small names not so much, and so they do a press tour for you, and they might put those things together, and they will market for you to a certain degree, but don't expect it to be like the red carpet treatment that King and N.K. Jemisin and Nettie Okafor get. It's going to be a lot of you still, even with a big, publisher. And so, but the benefits is you write your story, you turn it in, you get edits, you do your edits, and you're done to go work on your another story. And you market a little bit, you market, but you have all the things, right, that go into publishing are kind of off your plate. because someone at the publishing house is doing it. Like, my editor is going through it. The proofers are going through the clean version of after you've done all the edits. And then I have a social media coordinator and marketer, so she will come to you and be like, okay, here's the plan for how we're going to help market. This is what we're going to do. Here's some things we suggest you can do. What do you feel comfortable with? So we have that person too. And so that's kind of the beauty of it, right?
Okay.
It's kind of out of your hands. For people who aren't super extroverted like you, Manina, and who are not, super great with presence and speaking to people that they don't know, and they just want to write the book. And they can market it kind of, but they kind of just really just they don't want to do all that stuff, all that other stuff. Traditional publishing may be the path for you. It depends for me. Sometimes I can wait because traditional publishing is slow because there's such a funnel, right? And such a backlog. It takes a while. So if my agent is shopping around my novel now, even if someone takes it today and says, yo, we're going to do this, it won't come out for 2 years. So by the time it comes out, I'll be like, what book? I would have, right? But small presses and it can be a little bit shorter with time, depending because there's less overhead and there's
right.
But it just depends on what you as a person. Just be honest with yourself about the most important thing is to define what success means to you. What does it mean to you? That's really important because you may want to be a New York Times bestseller. It's not impossible to do by self-publishing because people have done it, like the guy who wrote the Martian Chronicles. You can do it. It just takes a boatload of work. And so you got to be in a little bit of luck. And so you got to make sure that that's where you want to be at. If that's, you got to know what success means. I tell people all the time, like, if you don't define it for yourself, if you let other people try to define it for you, you'll never get there. So you just got to know what you want. And it can change. You might say, hey, I'm going to start off self-publishing, and then you might do relatively well, and then a publisher might come to you and be like, hey, you got really great sales in this particular genre. We want to expand into that genre. Can we look at any new work you have? That has happened. And so it's happened. So it's kind of, you got to know yourself and what you want. But you may just know that with one of the things you trade off when you go to a traditional publisher, the more you go up the scale, like from small, medium to big, your royalties get smaller. So like I give 45%, right? 40 to 45% royalty rate. Third tier, mid-size might give you 20, and then you get up to the big boys and you're looking at 10, maybe 15%. So you got to think about that, but also think about volume. At that 10 or 15%, it's the Walmart situation. Are you going to sell more copies than you would at 45% with me in Mocha Memoirs? You just got to, those are the things you got to think about. And again, you're not married to it. So if you try self-publishing, like, God, it was way more work than I ever thought it would ever be, I never want to do it again, then don't. That's the beauty of now. You couldn't do this like 10 years ago when I started in 99. It was a lot harder to move between the different areas. And there was a stigma around self-publishing then that it still permeates a little bit today.
Still there today, yeah.
But it was horrible back in 99.
I can imagine. And me being at book expos as as a bookseller, you're doing your spiel and it's like, we cater to, not exclusive. And it's like, well, wait, do that books get edited?
Yeah.
They're still authors. They still have to go through the process. But those that know me knows my books get vetted.
Yep.
So regardless if they're self-published or not, you're vetted before you get on the shelf.
Yep.
To check for these things.
Yes.
To check for consistencies, because even with traditional published authors, you'll be surprised what gets missed.
Yep.
And you're like, this was from a publishing company? No way.
Yeah.
No.
So
she had on a white shirt 2 pages ago. Where's the same scene and now her shirt is pink? What?
It happens. It happens. It shouldn't happen.
I've had character names change, and I'm like,
the
back of the book said Sally Mae, And then I open the book and read it, and there's Sarah Joe. Woo. Wait,
Yeah.
what
So
book?
people,
Oh.
that's the reputation, right? It has this stigma that
Mhm.
self-publishing is poorer quality. When in many instances, if you look at the number of books or number of people who are now New York Times bestsellers who started off as self-published authors, you know that's not true. And typos and errors get by all of us, like it just does.
Right.
And so even the big guys, but you don't hear anyone saying anything about I
Mm-hmm.
got this book from Penguin and it's full of errors.
That is
No,
book. Never
because it's
hear it.
Penguin and you never hear anything, right? But don't let it be a self-published book. I told you not to buy a self-published book. They don't do anything. They just write it and publish it. And some
And
of
they
them
will
do,
discredit the entire self-publishing world for
unfortunately.
one book
Hmm.
instead of saying, oh well, maybe not this author, or was this their first book? Because and again, without me being a bookstore owner, I'm looking at reviews. Was this her first book? Because
Right.
you can see all of that on Amazon. Like, is
Yep.
this the first book?
Hmm.
Is this in a series? Like, what's going on? So you kind of give a little leeway. Oh, this is the first time. I'm gonna try it regardless. I'm gonna
Yeah.
order it, wait for it to come.
And see
I'm
what
gonna
happens.
try
Yeah.
and see what happens, because sometimes it's a vast difference between the first book and the fifth book. By the time you get to the fifth book,
You
you're
can
like,
see
oh
the
shit.
right. You
You
can
can
see the
see the
author
growth.
progression, right, and the writing
Correct.
grow. Yeah, and the author become more familiar and more comfortable in that world too. That's really important. And it's not just like self-published authors or small press authors. You can see that. Or I remember reading Laurel K. Hamilton's Anita Blake series, and you can totally see from like the first book um, through to when did I quit reading? Book 12. Um,
Mm.
the level of her writing just became it got a lot stronger, but it also became a lot more convoluted. And so sometimes I think you see it with Stephen King too. You see it with Rowling. You see it with lots of bigger name authors. They lose the ability to be edited when they should be edited. And so
Mm.
some of their earlier works before they became like you know
Big.
super famous are a lot stronger because they were working with an editor at a publishing house who was like editing them. But I remember when I got the seventh Dark Tower book, which is called The Dark Tower, I finished it and threw it across the room. And that book was 800 pages. I was pissed
Mm.
because I'm like, part of me was like, 400 pages could have been cut. This is ridiculous.
Mm.
Why is this book so long? It's completely unnecessary. It wasn't tight. It wasn't tight writing. It wasn't. Oh, I was so mad. I'm like, I've been reading this book since I was in the 10th grade in high school. This whole series, waiting anxiously for the next book, and I get to the end, and this is the garbage you give me. I almost lit it on fire.
Mm.
I was
And
mad.
as a reader, that's serious if we have to light a book on fire.
I was so angry. I did throw it. I'm sorry, Kat. But she's in a way. I didn't know she was right there. She's black. She is. She's in the shadows. Anyway, but that's the thing. Like once you get so big, some of them refuse to be edited. Some of them have just anyway. When you're thinking about your publishing career, know that it's not one course. It's not one path. It can have branches and it forks. And you drive that. You drive where it forks. You decide if you're going to go left or right or forward. And don't let anyone tell you that you can't do that. Your path to success based on how you define it is up to you. And so and you have many more options now than you ever did in publishing. And so there's no, if you're sitting on the fence going, I got a book in me, or I wrote this book and I don't know, do it. Just do it. Just do it. Life is way too short, man. Just do it. You have nothing to lose. Seriously, nothing.
Which you literally just answered my next question, which is, what would you tell an aspiring artist of any genre, specifically yours, horror, sci-fi, fantasy? And yes, just do it, which has been the answer that all authors have said on previous episodes, is just write it, get it out of your brain, onto some paper, onto your computer, and just get it done.
I also think too that reading in your genre is important. Stephen King says, and I'm sorry, I've been quoting him a lot tonight. Toni Morrison says, if you don't see the book that you want to read, go write it. So I mean, you can't get more prolific words and advice from Toni Morrison. But Stephen
Absolutely.
King also says that if you don't have time to read, you don't have time to write. And so I recommend that people read in their genre, the one that they want to write
Mm.
in. And so if I'm going to write a mystery, because I write all over the place and it's been a while since I write a mystery, I go back and I reread because I have a bunch of mysteries that are my favorites. I reread them. And it's a refresher for me, like in terms of like beats and cadence and setup and how to build suspense. Like so it refreshes all those things for me. If I'm
Mm.
going to write a horror story, I read horror before I sit down to write. That way I can pay attention to atmosphere. That way I can pay attention to tension, right? And how all these other authors do it. And so they're like mini lessons. And so if you don't have time to read stories, you don't have to read novels. But if you don't have time to read stories or read comics or read in the genre that you want to write in, make time to do that. That's really
Mm.
important for author's development.
Well, that's new. We haven't heard that before as far as reading in the genre that you want to write. And I actually think that is really good advice because how do you know that you're thinking, oh, I'm going to write urban fiction, and then in reality, your characters and your theme is like fantasy.
Yeah.
You could you merge the two? Sure, but is
I
that
match mine up all the time. I write fantasy. So you just heard about the Kingdom of Avis, right? It's a fantasy, but
Mhm.
they're whodunits. So
Yep, I love it. I love it. So, you guys, if you, like I said, for any aspiring authors or even established authors, if your next book you want to try their traditionally published route, go for it. I will never tell you how to get your coins because I am not in charge of anybody's wallets but my own. So, hey, you have good information. Like I said, you've had two other self-publishing companies on before. You now have Nicole here. So, hey, if you want some more information, please feel free to reach out to Nicole Kurtz. She does have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and her website is listed within the comments. So please feel free to give her a buzz. It'll be great. I'm sure she'll be, because she answers all of my questions and I tend to have a lot. So, but you don't know unless you ask. So, I
so
mean,
true.
hey,
Very true.
this is me. So, this has been a really good segment. I love it. I feel like I could have more questions, but we talk all the time, so I'm not even going right. I'm not
True.
even. So we've talked about your writing journey as far as you being an author. We have talked about your publishing company, which again is www.Mocha Memoirs Press. It is in the comment section. So please feel free. Make sure you're following on all social media sites.
Thank you.
A follow is great. So make sure you do that. So, it's 2021. God willing, we have decades more of books to read, books to write. You will be retired with your cat and your dog in New Mexico, taking in the warm sights, just living the dream. And you'll look out over all of the books that you have published for yourself, all of the books that you have helped publish for other people, and you can say, you know what, I have lived the life. What do I want my legacy to be when it's my time? Answer that question for me.
So I'd like for my legacy. I was the child of two teenage parents, and I spent most of my younger childhood in a housing project. We were very poor, and we were welfare kids. I was a welfare child because my parents were literally like in high school when they had me. And so when I look back on my legacy, I want every Black girl child to know that where you start doesn't have to be where you end. And so that's the legacy that I'd like to leave behind as proof positive that government cheese and you know free lunch doesn't define you, and it doesn't guide where you'll end up. This is just where you start. It's not where you end, and it doesn't define where you go.
I love it. Oh gosh, I love all the answers to these questions. It is so great. That one almost made me tear, and then I had to remember I put on eyeshadow and mascara today, and I don't want it to run. Wouldn't be good, but that answer just hit all of the feels for me today. So that was amazing, amazing. Nicole, you were awesome tonight. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Just stay with me a little bit. I have some announcements to make for everyone. Guys, this was so amazing. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you enjoyed all the laughter. I have some homework to do because clearly I am behind in books and in movies. So I'm going to take the time over the next few weeks and get caught up on everything that we have talked about tonight. I cannot promise that I'm going to read Stephen King, but we'll see. Stranger things have happened, but I will start with the movies. I will do that. So just baby steps with me. So thank you for all of the comments that we've had tonight. If this is your first time watching, again, my name is Menina. I own Legacy BookBar. It is an online bookstore that caters to Black self-published and traditionally published authors in all genres. We have urban fiction, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, children, self-help, poetry, memoirs. You name it, we have it. More genres are coming soon. Pretty soon, in the next few weeks, we will have cookbooks and recipes, and it's going to be really great. So make sure you stay tuned. Our website gets updated every 2 weeks. So if you are looking for a new book, please remember www.legacybookbar.com. Tonight, you can purchase Nicole Kurt's books, Mocha Memoirs Press books, under horror stories, under horror sections, under Legacy Book Bar. The website is going across your screen, so you can purchase today and use the shop code POPUP. That will give you 10% off your sale. So make sure you support Black authors, Black-owned publishing company, Black-owned bookstores. Who can say that you can support 3 Black-owned businesses with one purchase? And do that tonight with those shop codes. Legacy Book Bar is just taking off at the speed of light, and it is so much fun. Everyone knows about twice a month, I am at our local mall here in Maryland. So April 24th, we will be back at White Marsh Mall. The end of the month, we are hosting our first ever open mic night. We have some amazing poets that will be on. That is going to be live only on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to Legacy Book Bar on YouTube. Okay? This episode, as well as our previous episodes, are on YouTube tonight. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tell your friends and family. Open mic night is the last Friday of the month. I want to say, don't kill me because I don't have my calendar, but it's coming. Information will be coming out this weekend, so just stay tuned. As you know, Wild Sage can be for purchase at legacybookbar.com. Slay, which is my copy. But you never know. We might have some mighty good fairies that come and might bring this book to Legacy Book Bar. But if not, you are more than welcome to purchase it on Amazon or at Mocha Memoirs Press and support Nicole Kurtz. What else is happening? I feel like I'm missing something. Oh my gosh, I can't forget. Book club. So if you like fantasy, we have Her by author Malachi Bailey. His book is the book of the month for May. So you've probably watched Malachi in his previous episodes with us. He's the one where his character is actually turning into a comic book, which is turning into an action figure. You're going to want to be here for that one. Book clubs are always free. They're always virtual, and we always have the authors on the call. So All the questions that you have about the book, you can ask. Why did you kill this person? Oh my gosh, I loved it. What did you do? I can't believe it. Is this going to be a sequel? When can I get the action figure? You can ask all of those great questions direct to Malachi on the call. So you can RSVP and purchase your book today on our website, which is again scrolling across the screen. June is huge. Drum rolls. USA best-selling author, romance writer of the year, Beverly Jenkins is going to be our June book of the month. She is going to be on the call. We are going to be talking about Bring on the Blessings, book 1 of we affectionately in her Facebook fan group called Bob 1. We are going to be talking about that book. You can purchase that book today. It is for pre-sale. You can purchase your book, RSVP for the book club, and it is free. Now, for those of you that probably, like me, have all of the books digitally and with me, I also have the print copies too. Never fear. It is still free. You can still RSVP. It's virtual. We have spots galore. So make sure you RSVP tonight. You are not going to want to miss a free book club featuring the great Beverly Jenkins. But wait, I'm not finished. July, my birthday month, because I celebrate the entire month of July, right? I couldn't say, well, what am I going to do for my birthday? We got USA best-selling author, AC author, joining us for our July book of the month. So your girl over here is working hard and saying some prayers over here, okay? You are going to want to be a part of these amazing, amazing events. And of course, we're doing pop-ups. We're doing book expos. We're out here traveling. I'm going to get my vaccine shot because, again, it's still COVID outside and we have to be as safe as possible. So we're still going to do that. We're still going to have some fun. We're still going to sell these books. And then, of course, we're going to have Nicole back because she's got to have her book of the month. Now, I could wait until October, but I'm not sure if I want to do that, especially after I read Slay. But we'll see. But if anything, we'll have her back in October because October is what, people? Horror month. Duh. So, and Nicole has about this many books on our website to choose from. So we can just do eeny, meeny, miny, moe, pick a book out of the hat. And hopefully she will grace us with her presence for the virtual book of the month. Her anniversary is coming up, people. It'll be 2 years since I hit launch on Legacy BookBar. It is coming. God willing, and COVID act like it got some sense and it start packing its bag and leaving up out of here. Legacy can have their book summit in person. But it's going to be a 2-day event because why? We're fabulous. So we're going to have a book fair on day 1, right? All the authors are part of Legacy. Authors not a part of Legacy. Come in and it's going to be like a grown-up scholastic book fair. It's going to be amazing, right? Then book day 2 is going to come. And back by popular demand, we're going to have Natalie Jones. We're going to have Amanda Chambers. Hopefully we'll have Miss Nicole Kurtz with us. And we are going to talk about what is your publishing path. We had a great turnout. People still asked a lot of questions. But hey, why not get them in person? Why not ask them questions right there? They'll be there to answer all of your questions. And guess what? Day 2 is coming with a brunch. Why? Because I'm fabulous and I have grand ideas. But you know what? This is what I live for because Legacy is our baby and this is what we have to do. And if you want to see authors that look like you, if you want to see owners owners, CEOs of publishing companies that look like you, legacy is where you want to be. So stay tuned to all of the fabulous events, amazing news, and hop on this train with us. And we're going to keep this train riding. Thank you so much, Nicole, for being a part of our episode tonight. Thank you to all of the guests that tuned in and commented. Don't forget to like, share, and follow Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube for both Legacy Book Bar and Mocha Memoirs Press and Nicole Kurtz. Follow for follow, folks. This is how you're going to get all the wonderful news and updates when new books come out. You guys were great. Thank you so much. Be back here next Friday night. We have Sherry and Larissa on for talking about journal writing. So make sure you're with us next week. You guys have a great night. Stay safe. Still wear your mask. Social distance. And enjoy life. You guys have an amazing night. And I will see you next week. You guys have a good one. Bye.